My name is John Morris, and I am selected as a moderator, and the Republicans won the toss, and they chose for you to go first. So they're going to introduce themselves and say whatever they want to say, and then we'll go through a series of questions.
Hello everybody, my name is Austin Madrick. I'm a senior political science major with a concentration in international studies.
Hello, my name is Frida, political science major, senior.
I'm Jonathan Williams, and I am a graduate student in the political science department.
I'm John Bell, and I'm a janitor here. I'll be cleaning up after this later. I am a janitor, y'all know. I'm also a grad student, master's in public administration.
My name is Sam Kandari. I'm a senior political science student with a concentration in criminal law. I'll be attending Northwestern Law School here in spring of 2017.
My name is Jody Abel. I'm also a senior political science student with a concentration in pre-law.
Okay, so the first question is for the Democrats. On gun rights. Should we close the gun show loophole? And the second question is, should we have stricter background checks?
Well, in terms of the gun debate overall, I believe that discussion ought to be rooted more in cultural terms as opposed to new policies. Quite simply, our current gun laws work. Our regulations have cut the national violent crime rate in half from what it was in 1990. Despite this, we do have a serious gun problem in our nation. But it's not guns that are causing the problem. It's the gun industry and its lobbyists that are the problem. Despite the low crime rates in our country, this industry has been selling fear to the American people, and they have been incredibly successful in doing so. Since Barack Obama has been president, gun production has increased 140% over previous levels. In that same amount of time, over 100 million guns have been sold. If it was just for hunting and sporting, there would be little problem. As I said before, there's nothing wrong with guns and war. But the problem is that these guns are being promoted and sold with the concept of fear. They tell us we need to protect ourselves because the man or woman sitting across from us may want to kill us. We are so damn afraid of everybody that we're afraid to go to Walmart without a pistol strapped to our back. You know, that's scary and very unnecessary. In a society that is built upon relationships and communication, it is troubling that the message we are sending today is that we do not trust you. We are afraid of you, and we think that you might want to kill us. Yeah, that is the fear we must get away from. We must also move past the fear of government regulation of our weapons. The idea that the government is going to come blazing into our homes in order to steal our weapons is just nonsense. Such an orchestrated act would not be possible, and no law enforcement agency or official has ever proposed such a crazy plan. It's more fear-mongering. Safety regulations are necessary, and obviously have done nothing to circumvent our ability to purchase a gun. But the more tragic thing here is that the gun industry has been pushing the need to buy guns upon people who have never owned them before, or who lack the necessary training to safely carry or store them. This is what happens when people make an irrational decision based upon fear. They will buy the weapon and store it in a dresser or in their purse where their child can hit it. Or they fail to keep the safety lock in place and it accidentally fires, killing somebody and altering many lives. In terms of self-protection, a can of mace or a taser will do the same thing that a gun can, which is to neutralize the threat without the consequence of taking a life, whether purposely or not. Guns as an object are just fine. And so are the hunters and sportsmen who enjoy family traditions. So let's not make them out to be the enemy. They're not. Instead, let's educate ourselves as to what personal protection really entails, and then make smart choices as to the best way to do this. Let's make these decisions based on fact.
Before we get to the Republican response, Dr. Anderson informed me that he has a sign-in sheet in the back of the table if you want to let him know that you were here. To the Republicans, the same question. Should we close the gun show loophole, and should we have stricter background checks?
Well, first of all, I'd like to appreciate the comment that he made about the necessary need to keep weapons away from young children, maintaining proper safety locks on firearms. And I would also like to appreciate the fact that he said that it is a cultural issue. Unfortunately, we have a culture where people aren't taught to respect for life that is necessary. I'm a firearm owner myself. My firearms have never killed or harmed anybody. I keep my firearms in a safe, locked up. They are there for my protection. protection and when I choose to go hunting, and that is my Second Amendment right. The other issue that I'd like to address, as you said, is the gun show loophole. The gun show loophole in itself is a sort of a myth. It's not that gun laws don't exist in a gun show. It's not a free-for-all, it's not a walk in, walk out with a firearm. In order to purchase a firearm at a gun show, sure, you may buy it from one of the two sellers that are there selling a private gun over the weekend, but the fact of the matter is you still have to have a firearm transferred to your name by someone who holds what's called a federal firearms license, which is licensed by the federal government. And it is something that allows the state police from whatever state you're in to keep track of who owns the firearms, to keep track of who's purchasing them, where they're purchasing them, when they're purchasing, what type. The vast majority of people who are purchasing guns at a gun show are not purchasing them from a private individual. There's one to, as I said, maybe two sellers there that are trying to get rid of a gun over the weekend, and when they do sell them, they still have to keep track of the firearms. The federal firearms license really does a great job of maintaining that the only people who can sell guns, dealer to consumer, are the people that are licensed and have full sets of fingerprints and interviews with federal agents. So no, I don't believe that we should close any sort of gun control loophole because it doesn't exist. And on to the gun control, stricter background checks, I absolutely believe that we need to stop the mentally ill from getting firearms, having access to them. We could talk about many cases where unfortunate situations happen because of that. But removing a normally minded individual's right to keep and maintain firearms is in our Constitution. It's the founding of our nation. We have every right to keep and maintain firearms, just as much as we have the First Amendment to say and speak and do as we please, within reason, obviously. You can't make threatening gestures just like you can with a firearm. But no, I don't believe we need stricter gun control laws, other than, as I said, we do need to keep them out of the hands of those unfit to have them. And the gun control loophole, gun show loophole clause is not a real issue.
Now let's move on to college tuition, and this goes to the Republicans first and then the Democrats. Should public university be tuition free? If free or subsidized at a greater level, how would that be funded to the Republicans?
I got a paper going on right now about this, so I've got a little bit of research behind that. I talked with my colleagues, and we all agree that education is the answer to a lot of our ills in this society. There's just no doubt about it. Education, it is a fact, or at least it is indicated that the higher the education, the less likely you are to commit crimes. The higher the education, the higher your wage. The higher your education, the less unemployment. So you're talking about a lot of fixes there, all right? There's no doubt. And I took this on as a research because of a statement I heard Newt Gingrich say. He was talking about the average welfare recipient. Now his number was the average welfare recipient across the United States is 25,000. I didn't find that when I've done my research. Right now I'm looking in, like in Hawaii, it's $49,000 a year for welfare recipients. In Illinois, it's about 6 to 8. But nonetheless, to go out to Lakeland College, you're talking a few $1,000s. Obama came up with something called the Promise Program that is spreading, and it's actually fatally flawed. According to a guy named Robert Clever, he studied this, and it's called the Last Dollar Scholarship. It actually does nothing. It literally does nothing. Tennessee Promise has $356 million sitting in a budget, and it uses $39 million. Why? Well, that's because it doesn't give a stipend. As you all know here, how much does it cost to be here? It costs what? Food, clothes. Costs you got to pay for those dorms, right? You got to pay for cars, gas. All of these things cost. Therefore, the Promise Program doesn't pay for anything. It's the last dollar. In other words, you get your Pell Grants, you get your loans, you get whatever the federal government says. You got an EFE, expected family income, EFC, and it does very little because of the fact that it doesn't give you anything over that. So therefore, your tuition and whatnot is paid for. We used to have something that was called trade schools, where people could go for 1 year and get a certificate. And you still have that in some of your community colleges, but it should be brought about more. Not everybody's meant for a 4-year college, and we can't afford it. There's no way that the government can afford to send everybody to a four-year college, and there's not even enough room. Couldn't do it. Over capacity. So therefore, the way that in which this should be looked at, it should be looked at with a common sense. Actually, California has a GAIN program where it's called CalWorks, in which they have counselors and they look at every individual that's on welfare. And then they evaluate them, and then they set them, and it's mandatory that some of these people have education. Trade school, getting a GED, whatever it takes. And it raises them up, and guess what? It fixes it. Now I want to bring up one thing when we're talking about free college. One thing here is it was a Clinton that was sitting in office that turned around and reformed, with the help, of course, with Congress, reformed the Welfare Act. And that threw a bunch of people into part-time and very bad jobs. And that only lasted for a short period of time. They were back in the system again. If you educate somebody, they don't come back in the system. I've got about 4 or 5 that I can quote right off the top of my head of situations where the recidivism of going back onto welfare is cut almost in half if we educate people, if we teach them. So therefore, I think the education, yes, the states have to step up, and yes, they have to do more. But what Obama is calling for is a total failure. What the Clintons have tried to do with welfare reform and how they pushed it away from education, that was a failure. And it took a Republican like Newt Gingrich and some of the others to call for education to fix the welfare system. College can be a good tool to fix a lot of our country's ills. It's too bad that it's not the Democrats that are for it. It's the Republicans.
To the Democrats, should public university be tuition free, and if free or subsidized at a greater level, how would that be funded?
Well, we do share some commonalities. Although I don't think that partisan mud throwing is going to solve it. But I do believe that a college education should be available for all who want to pursue it and earn it. But I do not believe that simply giving away a free university education is the way to build a sustainable economy. And the problem I see with this is that we'll all end up needing a bachelor's degree to compete for a job at Pizza Hut. And the market will be flooded with well-educated yet inexperienced young people who must dig themselves into debt still, as they'll need to get a master's or even a doctorate in order to set themselves apart from the competition. And besides this, there is no way to pay for it. It's just a fallacy to think that. And I just don't think it's justified to ask somebody else to pay higher taxes to fund a philosophy degree. It's just not right. But that said, I do believe in interest-free government-issued student loans for students attending public universities. And the rationale for this is much more easily justified and will heavily benefit the college students of today and tomorrow. Now, a generation or two ago, a college education could be funded through summer jobs and part-time jobs, but that simply is not the case today. Newer technologies have increased the cost of a college education, forcing students to take out tens of thousands more in student debt, which rapidly multiplies as interest is tacked on each and every year. Yet for some people, me included, it's going to take 30 years or more to pay this off. And it's going to be, what I pay back is going to be far more than I ever borrowed. So I believe that interest-free student loans and Pell Grants are an honest and affordable way to fund the future of those seeking a higher education. But let's not forget that college is not for everybody. And this does not mean that blue-collar workers are lacking intelligence. Quite the contrary. These individuals carry out tasks that are vital to the functions of our society. And many who take this path do so because they are skilled in that task. It takes hard work to build houses and cars, and plant food, and clean our buildings, and prepare our meals. And not everybody can do that. As the old saying goes, we still need dish diggers. And we still need to hire hardworking, dedicated people who've gone through college to complete the jobs on the other end of the spectrum. But let's ask everybody who's going to take part in college to put some of their own money into this as well.
The Republicans would like to respond.
I'd just like to address a couple points that you had made, really, too. You said that it's unfair to raise taxes on other people to subsidize education. That was a point that you had made.
No, subsidize certain degrees that are not going to benefit society as a whole. Something that,
What you said is it's unfair to raise taxes on others to pay for an education.
to pay for a specific program. You're not going to put me in that hole.
Well, the fact of the matter is, regardless of what the degree is that you're seeking, interest-free loans and Pell Grants, I think are fantastic. I think that's a great idea. However, the issue with that is that you run into the problem of how are we gonna pay for this? If we're not raising taxes on other people, how are we gonna pay down the interest on these loans? And how are we gonna pay for the Pell Grants through government funding? I mean, it's a classic pyramid scheme. You're taking money from the top, and you're taking Paul's money to pay Peter. And eventually you run out of other people's money to subsidize everything. Socialism doesn't work.
That's all fine and dandy, but Peter and Paul have to get together at some point and work on something that'll work out. We do have to come together and decide, how are we gonna pay for this? It can't just be the Democrats come to save the day all the time, or the Republicans, as you would wanna say. So we have to come together at some point. But, again, Pell Grants have worked for 40-some years. I would say probably half the people in here get one. And again, we do have to find a way to make these student loans more affordable. Because if you borrow $50,000, you sure as hell shouldn't have to pay back $100,000 later on.
You've got 47% of people on welfare right now. 47% of Americans are on welfare. Okay? It is the Democratic Party that did NAFTA, TPP, and all these other things that have stolen the job. It's called deindustrialization. And they're gone. They're not coming back. But guess what party? It just showed them the door and don't want them to come back. We keep signing these NAFTA deals. We keep signing these deals. And then the low-skilled workers, where are they? They're on the welfare rolls. Now, yes, it's good that we educate these people. And you know what? It will save us money just by keeping them off welfare. As I said, I'll refer to New Gingrich again. We're turning around and we're spending $9,000 to $49,000 per year, and if we could avoid paying that out by simply paying $10,000 for a small degree in a vocation or whatnot, we save that much money. We don't have them back on, and we also raise the level. But remember, it's not the Republicans that have been showing the door to those industrial jobs and those low-skilled jobs that are still being done in India and in Pacific Rim and down in Mexico. But hey, Hillary was all for that. That was her golden child.
If I may interject just to make a point real quick, I think that while a lot of the points on the surface level that you're making sound really good, you're kind of making our argument for us. You spent the bulk majority of your first response talking about how education can frequently be the silver bullet to allow for social mobility, to get people off of welfare, etc., which is absolutely true. But I think the breakdown in your argument comes from when you raise the question of why should Peter give Paul some of his money? Because if we are ultimately looking for the betterment of getting people off of welfare in order to try and cut down on what you perceive at least to be too much government spending on welfare, by reinvesting in education, by changing up where the tax money is going, by getting people educated, providing free or reduced public education to citizens, we can get them educated, which takes them off of the welfare system, but moreover means that they can get involved in some of the great high-paying jobs that the United States is exploding in right now, which means that it is a self-fulfilling and kind of reassuring system where instead of saying that we need education to get people off welfare, but we can't tax people to get people education so we can get them off welfare, the argument breaks down there. So by shifting over where you're taxing people, you not only achieve greater educations through higher education, vocational education, certificate programs, but you can also then reduce the number of people on welfare, which is the very argument that you're trying to make.
Yeah. That's not what Jonathan was saying. That's not what Jonathan was saying. Jonathan, what was
Let's
saying?
move on to campaign finance. And this is for the Democrats. Do you agree with Citizens United? Why or why not? What is your general approach towards laws and regulations focused on campaign finance to the Democrats?
So I don't agree with Citizens United. I don't agree with a good number of the Supreme Court cases like McCutcheon versus FEC, which all but abolish the cap on the individual donations a private party or individual can make to a campaign or a political representative. Also Buckley v. Vallejo, which was a 1970s Supreme Court case, which kind of opened the door to the discussion we're having now. And that's because while I don't think it should be against the law for unions or for corporations or powerful CEOs of industry to make campaign contributions, that is their prerogative. At the end of the day, what we're talking about is what qualifies as free speech. A corporation isn't going to hold a door open for you. It takes people to do that, and that's why corporations aren't people. But if we go a couple steps further here, what what we have seen in the last number of years as our campaign finance reforms have been steadily undone is that more money in our political campaigns, especially in the campaigns for the presidency, for Congress, means that frequently politicians can take a bigger look at what special interests have to say than the most important special interest in this country, the American people, right? So we need a constitutional amendment to repeal Citizens United, but we also need, if the Supreme Court is going to continue to take a stand as a, as an activist court, which I don't think inherently is a problem, but if we have seen the negative impact of allowing rampant amounts of money into our political campaigns. 2012 presidential election made history not only because President Obama was reelected, but it also made history because it was the first presidential campaign where over $1 billion was spent on the campaign. So what we need is to also ensure that we have Supreme Court justices and officials on the Federal Elections Commission that will curtail the explosion of money we've seen in politics.
To the Republicans, do you agree with Citizens United? Why or why not? What is your general approach towards laws and regulations focused on campaign finance?
No, I know it's generally a stereotype that Republicans like big business to donate as much as they can, but I disagree. Most Republicans are outraged whenever we let a bunch of money flow to our system and corrupt our government and our political ideas. The easiest way to stop this is to allow federal financing of elections, and then you limit how much outside donations a campaign can take, and then you have them take money that the taxpayers willingly give them whenever they check off on their taxpayer forms. John, do you want to talk more about that?
Well, I was just, my thought that, I lean libertarian, and I don't know about y'all, but I thought the choices we had kind of sucked this year. I mean, to say that on both sides of that, I mean, a lot of us were having issues with that. Wouldn't it have been nice to have a few more choices? Wouldn't it have been nice to have a stage where it's mandatory that those that are in all 50 states registered on the ballot be on a debate stage and have equal say? Do you like two parties telling you, jamming down your throat, exactly who you can and cannot vote for? I don't. I think that the federal system should step in, and this is weird because Republicans are talking about more government, but I'm sick and tired of the system. It's time we change something. This doesn't work. I mean, we've got money coming in buying politicians, and I don't think we need to understand who's being bought and who isn't being bought this year. We know who's got the big pockets and who's in them, and who's owned by Goldman Sachs, right? Well, what we need to do is we need to put all the Libertarian Party, Jill Stein, we need to put them all on the debate stage and let them all talk. And then that way, everybody has a fair and equal shot. It's about time that America wakes up and goes back to its core roots, where we are what? We're for the people, aren't we? We're by the people. And let's start doing this more in a democratic manner. And if you actually were to regulate and say that you have to do this or you can't run for president, which there are requirements for being president, you have to be able to do. You have to be at these debates, and you have to have at least one speech in every state. Guess what? Then we don't have to have this stupid electoral college that takes away your real direct vote. Everybody wants to say we're in a democracy. We really are not. We've left that long ago. Your vote really doesn't matter much. It doesn't, because you elect some delegate that may or may not go along with you. That's what it's all about. Let's get back to the root cause of America. Let's talk about people and give them choices, and let's make our votes count. No, that's where big money comes in. If you're going to sit there and just let big money come in from the corporates and whatnot, and not give everybody a fair shot, just by eating the field, by leveling it out and allowing libertarians and whatnot to come in, then your money's gonna dry up, because money can only buy so much.
I think that I am absolutely for more political party engagement and more pluralism of the idea, but I don't think that campaign finance or engaging in campaign finance reform is going to fix the frequently broken system of third-party politics in this country. you can, I mean, at the end of the day, we saw a resurgence throughout this primary of the New Deal Democrat left under the guise of Bernie Sanders, who raised a bunch of money from individuals and not from any corporations.
And it got screwed by the DNC.
But my point is,
How did that work out in the end for them?
my point is that you would see, I think,
The party
more,
betrayed them.
a larger representation of third-party candidates like the Libertarians and the Green Party if they actually had more of an ideological backing and support from the American people. If they had the campaign infrastructure in order to build up a national base that supports their third party. That's how you're gonna see third-party activism in this country, not simply by, demanding that every single candidate makes a speech in every single state. I think that belies the larger issue that is the root problem of third-party candidates. And I also don't think that while campaign finance reform is absolutely necessary for this country, putting caps on spending and donations, et cetera, is going to somehow lead to an insurgence of third-party candidates.
It wasn't that long ago that the Democrats actually were for capping and correcting this finance. That's the fallacy that they switched now because they're getting the big pockets now. I mean, we got foreign governments giving to the Hillary Clinton Foundation.
And if the Democratic Party is so
Using foundations as
is
one.
so against receiving big donor money, let's talk about George Soros. Let's talk about Hillary's $400,000 Goldman Sachs speeches. Let's talk about her docket demanding a private $6 million jet to shuttle her around. The fact of the matter is, the Democratic Party has no problem taking large donations from people, and I would agree. The Bernie Sanders campaign was 100% ousted by Debbie Wasserman Schultz and the DNC, and it was a collusion against him and against the American people. He had a very good chance of winning, and I believe that the Democratic voters were betrayed by their party.
I think the issue you're fighting here is the problem with the system and not the candidates. You can't run a presidential election in this country anymore without having big campaign contributions, either from the everyday American voters, which Bernie Sanders saw as a success, but was the outlier. And like I said when I made my opening remarks, that we are now at the point where billions of dollars are streaming simply into
And they don't have to.
campaigns. It's not so
The more
much
money
an issue
that's
right
there, the
now
higher
of,
it's gonna go.
it's not so much an issue right now of the candidates accepting money. Donald Trump self-financed his entire primary run. He's the definition of big money in politics. But the fact of the matter is that you can't have an honest, informed, large-scale presidential campaign in this country anymore without taking a bunch of money from corporations and having big money in politics. The system is the problem here, and it's not who's actually accepting the money.
That's right, the internet doesn't reach.
Let's move
That's
on
right,
to foreign
that's
trade.
right.
And this is to the Republicans. Is free trade good for the economy? Explain your position. If so, what are its benefits? If not, then what is the best option to the Republicans?
Okay, well, I touched on it earlier. If you haven't heard of NAFTA, Ross Perot called it the Great Sucking Fest. Although he was a bit of a loose nut. He was right about that. Everybody laughed it off until NAFTA passed, and our jobs went with them. Gone. They're gone. Where are they? Well, India's got several. Mexico's got tons. Ford was moving their plant down there. Nabisco with the Oreos, man. Love them. They're Mexican now. They're down in Mexico. All of these jobs have been leaving on a steady pace. It's called deindustrialization. And it's been happening. It's been sped up by whom? Who makes money when we start shifting our jobs overseas? Well, it's the corporations. It's the heads of these CEOs that are getting millions of dollars that the Democrats scream about. Oh, it's terrible they got these golden parachutes, but they give them the parachute. They're the ones who say, go overseas, take your business overseas, and we will benefit you. Now, who's the one that's talking about saying, well, fine, if you're going to do that, then you're going to pay a tariff to bring your product back in? Well, that's right, that would be a Republican that's talking about that. That would be talking about bringing jobs back into America, giving jobs back to those that need it the most in the inner city. Has anybody heard of Gary, Indiana? How about Detroit, Michigan? My daughter was flying through Detroit, and I told her as she stopped, I said, whatever you do, don't stop. Keep moving. You can dodge the bullets. I am more worried about my daughter going to Detroit than when she's going to be deployed in Kuwait. That's a terrible thing to say, but you know what? When the jobs leave because of NAFTA, and now she was all for TPP. Okay, that's the Trans-Pacific Trade Agreement here, and she's escorting some more jobs out. The few that we've got left, she's saying bye-bye to. And guess who benefits again? These corporations, their profits, and where does that money go to? In Hillary's pocket. And it does. Who's the one that's gotten paid all this for? She continues.
Wait, let's not
to
talk
take
about
her-
who passed NAFTA. Oh, that's right.
Oh,
Hillary's
Clinton.
loosely termed husband passed
It doesn't matter, he was the one that signed
He's the one that
that
signed the law.
And, well,
They were not in agreement.
they weren't.
They were not in agreement.
And NAFTA was a big mistake, and we're about to do it again. And although she says that she wasn't, do you know that she's, WikiLeaks, God bless them, they're the ones that have turned it over, where Hillary has already told those south of the border that, you know what, it's great, we want open borders and we want more jobs going. So, that's what you have in the Democratic Party. They have a party that's going to continue to be an oligarchy and allow the corporations to rule this country, not you. That's what it's all about. You want to take back your country, you cut off the corporations' money. And that doesn't sound like a Republican.
No, it sure
but
doesn't.
It is, because it's bait and switch. It's bait and switch. It's just like the Democrats. They cater to the black vote and then do nothing for them for the rest of the year. For the rest of the time, they do nothing. They've done nothing.
Detroit being a prime example of having a Democratic mayor since 1968.
And how's Chicago doing on that violence? And that's Obama's hometown.
Let's move back to free trade.
Well, it is a matter of free trade, because the
Yeah,
fact of the matter is that General Motors
You
left.
guys are going off of these.
Well, no, the fact of the matter is General Motors left Detroit and the place turned into.
Time out.
Ford's in Mexico.
Time out. I will allow you to finish.
General Motors leaving Detroit. In the 1950s, Detroit was the industrial capital of arguably the world. We manufactured American products in America. We had working class, blue collar jobs that allowed Americans to find their way into the middle class. You could go to work at a GM factory or one of their suppliers and earn a livable wage to raise a family on. And when those jobs left, look at what the inner city of Detroit is like now. The fact of the matter is that these jobs leaving leads to an increase in poverty, it leads to a disparaged population, and it leads to people who feel disenfranchised and that the government is not representing them. There has been a Democratic mayor of Detroit since 1968. How is that working out for them? I would love to open this up to the community of inner city Detroit and see how they feel about the Democrats. As you said, the Democrats continually pander to the black vote, but yet they continue to let them down.
What are the Republicans doing for them?
There's a $500 billion trade deficit, thanks to that.
I'm
$500 billion.
going to move this to the Democrats. This is the question.
So-
Is free trade good for the economy? Explain your position. If so, what are its benefits? If not, then what is